In the shadows of Mexico's mountain ranges, a new kind of ghost has been haunting the global drug trade for over a decade. He isn't a flamboyant showman like El Chapo, nor a grandfatherly figure like El Mayo. He is Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho. But to understand the rise of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, we have to look deeper than just the headlines of violence. We need to understand the psychology of a Generation X criminal leader, a man born into poverty who learned to treat war like a cold, corporate expansion. Born in 1966 in the rural town of Aguililla, Mencho's early life was a masterclass in the latchkey self-sufficiency typical of his generation. Unlike the older patrons who relied on family legacy, Gen X leaders like Mencho were forced to be pragmatic, independent, and fiercely adaptable. His journey didn't start in a palace, but across the border, working as a low-level dealer in the San Francisco Bay Area during the 1980s. It was here that he experienced the first major turning point of his life: 3 years in a U.S. federal prison for selling heroin. For a Gen Zer, this wasn't just a punishment. It was an education in the logistics of the American drug market and the gaps in its security. When he was deported back to Mexico, he didn't return to the fields. He did something much more calculated. He became a police officer. This gave him a front-row seat to the inner workings of the law. He wasn't just evading the police, he was learning their playbooks. By the time he joined the Mencho cartel, Mencho possessed a psychological profile that was uniquely dangerous: the discipline of a soldier and the mindset of a CEO. When the Mencho cartel fractured in 2009, Mencho didn't just survive the chaos. He saw an opportunity for a corporate takeover. He founded the CJNG with a core philosophy: extreme, military-grade violence used as a strategic tool for rapid market expansion. Unlike the older cartels that relied on long-standing bribes, Mencho's CJNG was built on the Gen X trait of disruptive innovation. They were the first to use weaponized drones and improvised explosive devices on a massive scale, turning the streets into a modern battlefield. But Mencho himself remained a ghost. In a generation that values privacy over the social media clout of millennials, he stayed in the shadows. There are only a handful of photos of him in existence. He chose to be a CEO of terror, not a celebrity of crime. This psychological discipline allowed him to build an empire valued at billions, stretching across the globe from Asia to Europe. The CJNG didn't just sell drugs. They diversified into fuel theft, extortion, and even the avocado trade he grew up in. To understand Mencho's longevity, we must look at his 2011 masterstroke, the creation of the Matazitas, or zebra killers. This was a psychological operation. He framed his expansion as a cleansing of the old, more chaotic cartels, positioning himself as a necessary evil. While previous leaders were obsessed with local territory, Mencho viewed the world through the lens of a logistics expert, focusing on choke points. He understood that controlling the ports was more valuable than controlling the streets. He who controls the chemicals controls the market. This pragmatism is the hallmark of his generation. Gen Zers entering the black market didn't care for the honor of the old guard. They cared for the bottom line. Mencho's internal discipline was reflected in his physical health. He famously avoided the drug-fueled lifestyle of his subordinates, staying lean and alert. But this discipline had a dark side: an explosive, zero-tolerance policy for failure that kept his inner circle in a state of constant, productive terror. In 2015, he showed the world the extent of his reach when his forces shot down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade. It was a declaration of war against the state itself. Mencho wasn't hiding anymore. He was asserting sovereignty. Despite the massive manhunts and a $10 million bounty, he remained invisible, hiding in the golden triangle of the Jalisco Mountains. He utilized a Gen X philosophy of networked decentralization, where cells operated independently, making the cartel nearly impossible to decapitate. Even as his health reportedly declined in later years, his myth only grew. He became the Lord of the Mountains, a digital-age ghost story. His eventual capture in 2026 wasn't the result of a mistake, but of a changing world that no longer had room for even the most efficient ghosts. Mencho may be gone, but the Jalisco way, the corporate, high-tech approach to criminal empire, is now the global standard. While El Mencho remained in the shadows, his children were being groomed to modernize the empire's financial and strategic operations. His daughter, Jessica Johanna Oseguera, known as La Negra, was the architect of the cartel's legitimate-facing business facade. With a degree in marketing and dual U.S. citizenship, she used high-end restaurants and advertising firms to scrub the blood from the cartel's billions. Meanwhile, his son Ruben, El Menchito, was the heir apparent, serving as the bridge between the old-school muscle and the new-age tech. But the Gen X leader didn't just build a family business. He built a specialized military branch, the Droneros. This unit treated aerial warfare like a startup, rapidly iterating on drone designs to carry larger payloads and drop them with surgical precision. By 2025, the CJNG was even experimenting with FPV, first-person view, suicide drones, a tactic adapted directly from modern battlefields in Eastern Europe. This fusion of Gen X pragmatism and high-tech warfare made Mencho the most elusive target in history, until intelligence tracked his heart, not his phones. In February 2026, the ghost of Jalisco was finally tracked to a secluded mountain cabin near the town of Tapalpa. As the sun rose on February 22nd, the Mexican army launched a surgical strike that would change the criminal landscape forever. The firefight was brief but brutal. Mencho was critically wounded while trying to escape through the dense forest undergrowth he knew so well. He died in the air during a high-speed medical evacuation to Mexico City, passing away in the same sky his drones had once dominated. The aftermath was a Culiacanazo on a national scale. 22 states erupted in flames as the cartel's automated response plan went into effect. Mencho was a leader who understood that in the 21st century, power is not about being seen. It is about being the system itself. His death leaves a void that may never be filled by a single man, but the corporate military blueprint he left behind is already being used by his successors. If you found this deep dive into the psychology of crime fascinating, make sure to subscribe for more profiles on the world's most elusive leaders.